Have you ever seen a plant grow harder in the worst soil than another one does in rich garden beds? No expensive fertilizer, no shiny bottles, no chemical feed schedule taped to the wall, just a dirty bucket, a handful of ash, a sour smell in the air, and leaves so green they almost look fake. It feels wrong, because most people have been taught that ash is just waste, too harsh, too messy, too old-fashioned, something you sweep out of a stove and throw away. And fermentation? That belongs to pickles, or compost tea, or something strange old farmers did before modern agriculture arrived. And yet, in gardens that should be tired, weak, and depleted, this simple fermented wood ash trick can wake plants up so fast it looks like they've been switched with healthier ones overnight. New growth, thicker stems, darker leaves, more flowers, stronger roots. And the strangest part is this: it costs almost nothing. Because the thing most people keep buying in plastic bags was already sitting in the ashes of a fire. What you're looking at is not magic. It's not a miracle product. It's not some secret formula owned by a company. It's a forgotten method, a low-cost, old-world plant tonic, made from something people used to understand instinctively. You've seen this your whole life. After old brush piles were burned, the next growth often came back stronger. After a controlled burn, fields changed. After a wood stove winter, people used the leftovers in the soil. Across villages, farms, forests, and small homesteads, people noticed the same pattern long before they had scientific labels for it. Where wood returned to earth, life came back differently. But here is the part most people never learned. Raw ash is not the full trick. Raw ash can help, but raw ash can also be misused. Too much of it can shock soil, burn roots, push things out of balance. That is where fermentation changes everything. Because instead of dumping ash directly and hoping for the best, you soften it. You wake it up. You let water, time, and living microbes transform it into something plants can take more gently and more quickly. And when that happens, the result can be shocking. Not because nature is mysterious, but because nature has always been smarter than the systems built to replace it. Most gardeners blame themselves when plants struggle. They say, maybe I'm overwatering, maybe I'm underwatering, maybe I bought the wrong fertilizer, maybe I just don't have a green thumb. So they buy another product, then another one, then another. They move from pellets to powders to liquid feeds to booster formulas with bright labels and impossible promises. But the real problem is often much simpler. The soil is tired, the minerals are off, the biology is weak, and the plant is not starving for more products. It is starving for balance. That's why this matters. Because this isn't just about making plants grow fast. It's about replacing the modern belief that growth must come from a store, with the older truth that growth often begins with what you already have. Wood ash, when it comes from clean, untreated wood, contains minerals plants use, especially potassium, calcium, and trace elements. In very simple terms, potassium helps plants move energy, handle stress, build stronger growth, and support flowering and fruiting. Calcium helps with structure. It strengthens plant tissue and supports healthy development. But if you throw raw ash straight into soil, especially too much, it can be too aggressive. It changes the soil too fast. It can make nutrients harder to access. It can damage tender roots. Fermentation helps solve that. Think of it like this. Raw ash is like a loud voice. Fermentation teaches it how to speak more gently. When ash sits in water with microbial life and organic matter, the mix becomes more usable, less harsh, more blended, more biologically active. Not sterile feeding, living feeding. And that idea is ancient. In parts of Asia, Africa, and Eastern Europe, farmers long relied on ash, soaked plant brews, fermented inputs, and mineral-rich homemade solutions to revive tired land. Not because they were following trends, because they observed what worked. Ancient agriculture was full of these patterns. Char, ash, manure, fermented plant matter, soaked compost, flood silt, kitchen waste, leaf mold. Nothing wasted, everything cycled. Old systems did not treat the farm like a shopping list. They treated it like a living loop, and somewhere along the way, that logic was broken. This knowledge was not always lost because it failed. Sometimes it was lost because it was too local, too simple, too cheap, too hard to package. It works too well to be profitable at scale. A bucket of fermented ash does not create a billion-dollar brand. It creates independence. And independence is hard to sell. So here's what this trick actually is. It is a simple fermented wood ash liquid you can make with almost no money. A homemade mineral tonic for plants. Not a miracle, not a replacement for healthy soil forever, but a powerful boost when used correctly. Here's the basic method. Start with clean wood ash. This matters. Only use ash from natural, untreated wood. No painted wood, no plywood, no glued materials, no charcoal briquettes full of additives, no trash burn ash, no plastic-contaminated fire pits. If the wood wasn't clean, the ash isn't clean. Next, get a bucket. Plastic is fine. A lid helps, but it doesn't need to be airtight. Add a modest amount of wood ash. Not too much. For a household-size batch, think in small quantities, not giant scoops. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make. More is not better. Then add water. Some growers add a sugar source like molasses, brown sugar, or even a little old fruit to help feed fermentation. Some add a handful of compost, leaf mold, rice wash, or old soil from a healthy garden to introduce living microbes. Some combine ash with plant scraps like banana peels, weeds, or soft green material. You do not need a laboratory formula. The idea is simple. Minerals from the ash, microbes from living material, food for microbes from a sugar source or decomposing plant matter, water to bring it all together. Then you let it sit. Usually several days to a couple of weeks, depending on temperature and method. Stir it once a day if you can. Keep it somewhere shaded. You may notice a sour, earthy, slightly fermented smell. That is normal. What you are making is not meant to smell pretty. It is meant to become useful. Over time, the liquid changes. The harshness softens. The components begin to blend. The solution becomes more biologically active and more suitable for dilution. And dilution is important. You do not pour this on plants at full strength unless you know exactly what you're doing. You dilute it with water. A weak tea, not a blast. Then you use it around the root zone or as a light soil drench. Some people use it for fruiting plants, some for vegetables, some for weak ornamentals, some for tired containers that have lost vigor. And when it works, you usually notice the same things first. The leaves stop looking dull. The plant stands more confidently. New shoots appear. Flowering becomes more active. Growth feels less stalled. Not because the plant was lazy, because the soil was missing a signal. This is what most people often get wrong. They hear wood ash and think, good, I'll add a lot. That is exactly how they create problems. Too much ash can push soil in the wrong direction. It can make the ground too alkaline. It can lock out certain nutrients. It can stress seedlings. It can damage roots. Another mistake is using it on every plant equally. Not all plants want the same conditions. Some love a more neutral or slightly sweetened soil environment. Others prefer more acidity and will not appreciate repeated ash-based inputs. Blueberries, azaleas, camellias, and other acid-loving plants are not usually the place to experiment carelessly with ash. Another mistake, using dirty ash. That one is simple. If the source is bad, the result is bad. And another, thinking this replaces compost, mulch, sunlight, and good watering. It does not. This is an enhancer, a booster, a correction, a low-cost input, but it still sits inside a larger truth. Plants do best in living systems. Now let's talk about why it can make growth seem so fast. People often assume fast plant growth only comes from nitrogen-heavy chemical feeds. But stalled plants are not always asking for the same thing. Sometimes they already have enough green-building energy. What they lack is mineral support, balance, stress resistance, better root function, a stronger soil environment. When potassium and calcium become more available, and when microbial activity improves around the root zone, the plant can respond quickly, very simply. The roots work better. The plant handles water better. The stems strengthen. The leaves perform better. Flowers and fruit set with more confidence. It is not that the liquid forces growth. It removes friction. That's why the change can look dramatic. Like a machine that was not broken, just clogged, and this can scale. At the small level, it helps a few pots, a garden bed, a patch of tomatoes, a row of peppers, some cucumbers that seem stuck. At a larger level, the idea expands into a whole philosophy of land use. Stop wasting local mineral resources. Stop throwing away what can return to the soil. Stop assuming growth requires imported solutions first. This is how old systems stayed alive with less cash. Not with perfect purity, not with branding, but with cycles. Kitchen waste returned, fire residue returned, animal waste returned, crop waste returned, water was reused, knowledge stayed practical. The hidden resource was never rare, it was overlooked. Even today, after bonfires, brush clearing, wood stoves, rocket stoves, bread ovens, and rural cooking fires, people still produce ash. Usually it gets dumped or ignored. But in the right amount, from the right source, with the right method, it becomes part of fertility again. Now let's address the obvious objections. Is it safe? Yes, when done carefully. Use gloves when handling ash if your skin is sensitive. Do not breathe ash dust deeply. Do not use contaminated ash. Do not over-apply. Do not store the brew where children or animals can get into it. And always test gently. Use it on a small area first. Watch the plant. Watch the soil. Pay attention. Because old knowledge works best when matched with observation. Not blind enthusiasm. Some people worry about smell. That is easy. Keep the fermentation outside. Use a lid loosely. Do not let it become a rotting swamp of too much material. A mild fermented smell is normal. A disgusting putrid smell usually means your balance is off, or you added too much heavy organic matter without enough air. Some worry it sounds primitive. That may be the biggest misunderstanding of all. Primitive does not mean ineffective. It often means nobody industrialized it yet. Ancient people were not stupid. Traditional growers were not guessing at random. They watched land for generations. They understood something modern culture forgets constantly. Waste is often a resource waiting for the right process. This is the same logic behind composting, the same logic behind seed saving, the same logic behind fermentation itself. Transformation, not disposal. And once you see that, you start noticing how many solutions were hidden inside ordinary life. Ash from heat, peels from food, leaves from pruning, rain from roofs, microbes from healthy soil, fertility from things most people throw away. The modern system teaches dependence by separating people from process. Buy this, replace that, throw this out, start over. But nature rarely works that way. Nature loops, nature ferments, nature breaks things down and reuses them. That is the deeper lesson here. Not merely that a fermented wood ash trick can make plants grow crazy fast. It can. But the bigger truth is why that feels so surprising. Because we have been trained to distrust what is simple. We assume that if a solution is cheap, local, and homemade, it must be weak. If it smells earthy, it must be backward. If it came from old knowledge, it must be outdated. And yet, again and again, the oldest systems still reveal the same pattern. Nature solved many of our problems a long time ago. We just stopped listening. So the next time you see ash at the bottom of a stove or after a pile burn, don't just see leftovers. See stored minerals. See a missing link. See one more example of a hidden resource sitting in plain sight. Because the difference between waste and wealth is often not the material, it is the knowledge. And the difference between a struggling garden and a thriving one is not always more money. Sometimes it is one old method, rediscovered at the right time. A bucket, water, ash, microbial life, patience. That's all it takes to remind the soil what it already knew. And maybe that is why knowledge like this disappears so easily. Not because it failed, because it made people less dependent. If this changes the way you see the ground beneath your feet, then maybe the most valuable things were never far away. Maybe they were just called worthless long enough for everyone to forget.